The testimonies featured on this channel are presented as received, reflecting the personal experience and perspectives of the individuals who have generously shared them with us. We encourage our viewers to approach these testimonies with compassion and understanding, as these are personal testimonies of people involved. We also encourage you to always refer to the Holy Bible and the teachings of Jesus Christ and his apostles for guidance. You can consider subscribing to the channel to help promote this ministry. He was just a man, born into dust and heat, like anyone else in a small desert village. But from the time Muhammad was a child, people saw something different in him. He was quiet, deeply thoughtful, and always asking questions that made even the elders stop and wonder. His father, a respected Imam, saw in him the future of their faith. Muhammad grew up surrounded by the sound of call to prayer echoing through sun-scorched streets, the rustling of Quran pages, and the deep, constant push to please God, Allah, as he knew him then. By the time he was 15, he had memorized the Quran. By 20, he was leading prayers. And by 30, they called him Sheikh Mohammad, a man trusted to guide others, settle disputes, and preach truth. He believed with all his heart. He prayed 5 times a day. He fasted. He spoke with conviction. He lived a life of discipline and sacrifice. But beneath it all, there was a silence, a deep silence inside him, an unanswered ache, a strange fear that he never spoke about, not even to his wife. He didn't know then that the fear had a reason, that one day it would swallow him whole. Because on a day like any other, when the call to prayer rang out and the faithful filled the mosque, Sheikh Mohammad collapsed. No warning, no pain, just silence. What happened next changed everything. He didn't just die. He left his body, across a veil, and saw what no man should see. Fire, screams, faces he knew, and then something no one had ever told him was even possible. This is a story of what he saw in hell, who he met in heaven, and the terrifying, beautiful, painful truth that made him leave Islam, risking his family, his freedom, even his life. Let's hear from Muhammad.
It was a Friday. I had just finished leading Jumu'ah prayer. The mosque was full that day. I remember walking to the front of the prayer hall to speak with 2 elders who had questions about a hadith. My chest felt tight, but I ignored it. I had been fasting extra days, trying to draw nearer to Allah. The last thing I remember before blacking out was the sound of my voice echoing through the microphone. Then, everything went dark. But it wasn't sleep. It wasn't peace. It was something else. I woke up, not in my body, but floating above it. I could see myself on the floor, people rushing. My youngest student was crying. My wife was screaming from the back of the mosque. Then I felt a pull, like something grabbing my soul and dragging it down. I tried to resist, to recite the Shahada, but no words came. My tongue wouldn't move. I screamed in silence, and then I was falling. It felt like hours. Darkness, then fire, then voices. I opened my eyes and saw a place darker than night, but alive with light from flames. Shadows moved between the fire. Faces of people I knew. A former student, my cousin, an old teacher, all of them screaming. Their flesh melted, repaired, and melted again. They clawed at their own skin, and the smell. It was worse than anything I'd ever imagined. And then I heard the voice, deep, angry, powerful. You preached in my name but never knew me. I tried to speak. I tried to say, but I followed the Prophet. I led prayers. I obeyed every command. The voice replied, you feared tradition more than truth. You worshipped words, but not me. Then I saw him, my father, the one who taught me to pray. He was bound in chains, his eyes full of sorrow. Father, I called, but he turned his face. I was dragged through corridors of suffering. I saw women crying, children screaming, men gnashing their teeth. There were religious leaders there, men with long beards and white robes. One of them I had seen on TV. Another had debated Christians for years. I asked one of them, why are you here? He looked at me with burning eyes. Because we lied. We covered the truth. We mocked the cross. Then, without warning, everything changed. The fire vanished. I was standing in a valley so green, it made my heart ache. Rivers flowed like light, trees shimmered, and I felt safe. I heard singing soft, beautiful, and then I saw him, a man in white. His face was light, his eyes love, but not soft love. Love like a sword, fierce and pure. He called my name, Muhammad. I fell to my knees. He said, "I died for you. You have been seeking me your whole life. You just didn't know it." I said, "But I was a Muslim, a teacher, a sheikh." He smiled, "And I was a shepherd. The world will never understand. But I love you." He reached out his hand. When he touched me, everything I had ever believed began to tremble and break. I saw verses of the Quran melting away. I saw the cross shining. Then he showed me what was to come if I returned. The persecution, the rejection, the fear, my family, my mosque, my name. "Will you follow me?" he asked. I wept. I begged for time. And he said, "I have chosen you for this. Go, speak, and fear no man." I woke up gasping, in a hospital bed, surrounded by doctors. My wife held my hand. She said I had been dead for 9 minutes. 9 minutes in eternity. That was just the beginning. When I opened my eyes in the hospital, it was like waking up in someone else's body. The room smelled of antiseptic. Machines beeped. My wife sat beside me, holding her prayer beads, her eyes red from crying. "You died," she whispered. "But then you came back." I couldn't speak. My throat felt dry, but my mind, my soul was screaming. I had just seen things no man is prepared to see. I had stood in fire. I had seen men I loved in torment. And I had heard a name, Jesus, not as a prophet, but as Lord. I stayed in that hospital bed for days. My family and students came to visit, bringing flowers and reciting Quran over me. They thought it was a miracle I survived. They said, "Allah gave you another chance." I nodded, but deep inside, something had broken. Or maybe something had awakened. The dreams started the second night. The man in white would come to me. Sometimes he would stand silently at the foot of my bed. Sometimes he would speak. Once he held out a book I had never read before, the Injil, the New Testament. "Read," he said, and then I would wake up crying. I tried to keep it all inside. I feared what it would mean if I said anything. I was a sheikh, a leader. If anyone found out I was questioning the faith, I could lose everything. But I couldn't ignore it. One day, I went to my private library and picked up a Quran. I opened to Surah Maryam. I had read it hundreds of times. But this time, I noticed something strange. It spoke of Jesus being born from a virgin, of him speaking from the cradle, of him being called a word from Allah and a spirit from him. My heart started racing. I picked up a Bible that an old Christian doctor had once given me during a conference. I had never read it, never even opened it. But now, couldn't stop. Page after page, I saw the man I had met in that green valley. He spoke of loving enemies, of turning the other cheek, of being the way, the truth, and the life. And when I read his words on the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," I broke. I fell to the floor and sobbed. But that moment, though it felt like peace, was the beginning of war. Because the moment I began to believe, the world I knew began to crumble. It started with subtle changes. I stopped leading prayers with the same intensity. My sermons became gentler. I spoke more about love, about peace, about forgiveness. Some of the older men in the mosque noticed. One pulled me aside and asked, "Sheikh, are you well? You've changed." I smiled. "Yes, I'm well. I'm just seeing things differently." But in my heart, I knew the seed of Christ had been planted, and nothing could stop it from growing. I started secretly meeting a small group of underground believers in a nearby city. They were former Muslims, men and women who had seen visions, who had found Christ through dreams and secret Bibles. I wasn't alone. That gave me courage. One night, we met in a dark basement. One of the women brought a bottle of water and a towel. "You're ready," she said. She baptized me in secret. There were no choirs, no crowds, no celebration. just whispered prayers and quiet tears. When I came out of the water, I felt it like fire inside my chest. A holy fire, not like the one I saw in hell. This one gave life, but that fire also brought danger. A few weeks later, someone reported me. A student overheard me praying in the name of Jesus. My phone was tapped. I was summoned to the mosque council. They sat around a long table, eyes hard. "Have you left the faith?" one asked. I stayed silent. "Answer," said another. "We've heard things, seen things. Do you deny the prophet?" I said, "I have seen things I cannot deny. I have met him. I have met Isa." There was silence, then shouting, "You're mad. You're possessed. You've betrayed us." I was stripped of my title, my position, my salary, my name. My wife cried for days. My eldest son refused to speak to me. My youngest daughter asked, "Why doesn't Baba lead prayer anymore?" I wanted to hold them and explain, but how do you explain a near-death vision of hell and heaven to a 6-year-old? Then came the threats. Phone calls in the middle of the night. Stones thrown at our house. My wife's brother came to confront me. "You've shamed our family," he shouted. "You've brought death upon us." He tried to attack me with a knife. I barely escaped. We fled that night. I took my wife and children and left the village under cover of darkness. We had only what we could carry. We moved from city to city, staying with friends, strangers, anyone who would help. Some Christians hid us. Others feared the risk. "He was a sheikh," they said. "He's too dangerous." But Jesus never left me. He would come to me in dreams, sometimes walking with me through fire, sometimes just standing beside me in silence, reminding me that I was not alone. One night, I asked him, "Why me? Why not someone braver, someone stronger?" And he said, "Because you know the fire, and now you know the light. You must speak." So I started writing down everything I had seen, every detail, every word. I recorded it in notebooks, on scraps of paper, on the backs of receipts. I started speaking in small gatherings, house churches, secret fellowships. People wept when they heard what I had seen. But every time I spoke, the danger grew. I lost everything. My name, my mosque, my home. My father disowned me. My mother died calling out for me with curses on her lips. I was declared an apostate, a traitor. But I gained something that no one can take from me. I gained Christ. And though I have walked through fire, I now live in light. They can take my life, but they cannot take the truth I now know. The man in white, the voice of love, the cross that broke my chains. I am not ashamed, because I was dead, and now I live. I never imagined that following Jesus would mean losing everything, yet gaining more than I ever dreamed. After we fled our home, we lived like fugitives. Every day felt like a test of faith. We moved from town to town, rarely staying in one place for more than a few weeks. We slept in small rooms, basements, sometimes even cars. There were nights I held my children as they cried themselves to sleep, whispering, "Baba, when can we go home?" But we had no home. We only had each other and Christ. We received help from people I once would have considered enemies. Christians, the same ones I used to debate with, the same ones I taught were misled and blasphemous. Now they opened their homes to me, fed me, prayed over my family, and most of all, they didn't ask me to prove anything. They just loved us. One night, while staying with a Christian family, I sat beside a small fireplace while the husband read the Bible aloud to his children. It brought tears to my eyes. He was reading from John 14. "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. I go to prepare a place for you." I closed my eyes, and in that moment I was taken again. Not out of my body, not in a near-death way, but in spirit. Suddenly, I was standing in a familiar place, that same green valley from before. The air was rich with peace. Flowers danced without wind. Birds sang in harmony I had never heard before. And then I saw him again, Jesus. This time he wasn't alone. A crowd followed him, faces full of joy. Some looked familiar, some were strangers. but all of them were glowing with a light that didn't come from the sun. Jesus looked at me and said, "This is your true family." I fell to my knees and wept, but the joy of that vision didn't mean the suffering ended. Not long after, our location was compromised. A neighbor who had seen me speaking in secret told someone in the mosque. Soon, we heard shouting outside our window. "Apostate! Infidel!" They threw rocks, broke the windows, slashed the tires of the car we had borrowed. My youngest daughter, just 6 years old, screamed and clung to my leg. My wife trembled beside me, felt like hell had returned. We ran again, but this time, something in me broke. Not in despair, but in boldness. I was tired of hiding, tired of running, tired of whispering about the truth when the whole world needed to hear it. So I made a choice. I recorded my story, all of it, the visions, the fire, the man in white. I shared it online through an anonymous channel. I blurred my face, I changed my voice, but still, people found me, and the messages began to pour in. Some from Muslims, furious, threatening, but others were desperate. "Sheikh Mohammad, I had a dream like yours. I saw the man in white. What does it mean? My brother died last year and came back claiming he saw Jesus. I thought he was crazy, until I saw your video. I don't know what to believe anymore, but I feel what you're saying is true." These messages gave me strength. I realized that I wasn't just saved for myself. I was saved to be a voice, even if it cost me my life. I began secretly discipling others, former imams, devout Muslims who had experienced dreams, visions, miracles. We formed a small network. We called it The Way. Some of them paid with their lives. One brother was caught with a Bible in his bag. He was stoned to death in front of a market. Another sister, just 17, was poisoned by her own family for refusing to renounce Christ. I remember attending her secret burial. We wept in silence. I looked at her small, covered body and whispered, "You've seen him now, fully." Was I afraid? Yes, every day. But I remembered his words to me in the valley. "Fear no man." Even when the authorities came looking for me, even when a price was put on my head. Eventually, I was captured. They caught me while I was traveling to baptize a former mufti. I was blindfolded, beaten, and thrown into a dark prison cell. For days, they tortured me, burned me, starved me. "Return to Islam," they said. "Say the Shahada, just once." I stayed silent. In that cell, I remembered the fire of hell. I remembered my father's face, twisted in sorrow. I remembered the cross that had burned in the sky above me. So I prayed, not for deliverance, but for strength. And one night I saw him again, Jesus, in the corner of the cell, his hands glowing, his face peaceful. "I am with you in the fire," he whispered. That night, the guards forgot to lock the back gate. I escaped. I ran through alleys and fields until I collapsed near a church. They took me in, cared for me, hid me until I healed. Now I live in exile, a man with no country, no passport, no official identity. But I have Christ, and that is enough. People ask me, was it worth it? I have lost friends, family, my title, my comfort, but I have gained eternal life. I have stood in hell. I have seen its torment. I know what awaits those who trust in religion but do not know the truth. And I have touched the feet of Jesus. So I will speak until my last breath. To my Muslim brothers and sisters, I do not hate you. I was you. I loved Allah. I believed with all my heart. But I missed the one thing that matters, the cross. You may be angry with me. You may think I am lying. But ask yourself, why would I suffer this much to deceive you? What did I gain? Nothing on earth, but everything in eternity. Jesus is not just a prophet. He is the Son of God. He is the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world. He is the one who stood in the fire with me, and he waits for you with open arms. This is my story. I am Sheikh Mohammad. I was blind, but now I see.